Hey there! If you live in Illinois, you already know our winters can be absolutely unforgiving. And you probably also know that unique stomach-dropping pain of opening your January gas bill. Am I right? When the temperature starts dropping, heating costs usually shoot right up. In fact, for most of us in the state, keeping the house warm is often the single largest controllable energy expense we face all year, making up almost half of a typical household's energy budget. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, our goal is to cut through all the marketing hype surrounding home heating upgrades so you can make a truly informed decision for your own home.
You've probably seen the advertisements for sleek, modern combi boilers, but are they actually worth the hype? Do those sky-high promised efficiency ratings printed on the side of the box actually translate to lower winter utility bills in the real world? Or are you better off just sticking with the tried-and-true traditional furnace? Well, let's find out together.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The Winter Heating Challenge. 2. Combi boilers versus traditional furnaces. 3. The reality of efficiency. 4. Usage patterns drive savings. 5. Installation makes or breaks. And 6. Calculating your potential savings. By the end of this, you're going to have a solid, actionable plan to figure out exactly what works for you.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Winter Heating Challenge. Let's compare our two main contenders. On one side, we have the traditional setup that most of us are incredibly familiar with. This is your classic split system, a furnace dedicated purely to heating the air in your home, plus a completely separate water heater. You know, that giant rusty metal tank taking up a huge footprint in your basement just for your showers, dishwashing, and laundry. Now on the other side, we have the modern alternative, the combi boiler setup. This is a single, highly consolidated, wall-mounted unit that provides both your space heat and your domestic hot water, all from one surprisingly compact device.
Moving right along to Section 2, combi boilers versus traditional furnaces. Okay, so let's define exactly what makes these modern systems so special. A condensing combi boiler is designed to capture way more heat from combustion gases. It does this by extracting additional energy as the system cools its exhaust products. Think of it like wringing out a wet sponge to get the absolute last drops of water. Instead of letting valuable, expensive heat just float straight up the chimney like a traditional furnace does, condensing technology wrings out every last drop of extra energy from that exhaust before it escapes. It's a brilliant piece of engineering that theoretically wastes almost nothing.
And that brings us to the absolute #1 biggest theoretical advantage of a combi boiler. By consolidating multiple appliances into just one device, you significantly reduce what the industry calls standby and distribution losses. Standby losses, well, basically you paying good money to keep 40 gallons of water piping hot in a tank at 3 in the morning while everyone in the house is sound asleep. By switching to an on-demand, consolidated engine that does all the work only when it's actually needed, you completely eliminate that constant waste. Sounds perfect, doesn't it?
But here's the core reality check we have to face. Will it actually lower your bills? Well, it depends. The actual financial savings aren't guaranteed just by buying the unit. They're heavily dictated by several highly specific variables inside your own home. Which leads us to Section 3, the reality of efficiency. Let's break down exactly where these units thrive and where they struggle. Your financial advantage really flourishes if your home has frequent hot water demand, short piping runs from the boiler to the taps, and adequate return water conditions. Now, adequate return water conditions simply mean the water coming back to the boiler after looping through your house is cool enough, usually under 130 degrees Fahrenheit, to actually trigger that highly efficient condensing mode we talked about earlier. But consider the unfavorable conditions. If your household has infrequent hot water usage, long piping runs weaving all over the house losing heat, and the system is forced to operate mostly in a non-condensing mode because the return water is too hot, well, your expected financial advantage is going to shrink significantly.
Next up, Section 4. Usage patterns drive savings.
Let's dive right into the daily habits that directly impact your wallet. First, Illinois weather is incredibly varied, from Chicago area lake effect cold spells to deep southern cold snaps. For maximum savings, combi boilers need to maintain efficient, steady operation across longer heating cycles during these weather shifts. But honestly, even more importantly, consider family size and hot water demand. Families running back-to-back showers, yeah, I'm looking at you, parents of teenagers, see the absolute most benefit because the boiler is consistently doing its dual job. Conversely, in homes where hot water just sits unused for 8 to 10 hours a day while everyone is at work, you simply won't see as much of an offset on your bill. Also, if you already practice great plumbing habits, like using low-flow fixtures and taking short showers, the relative leap in savings from an old water heater to a new combi boiler might actually be much smaller than you'd expect.
Okay, Section 5, Installation Makes or Breaks.
I want to slow down for just a second here, because this is absolutely crucial. You have to view your home heating as a complete living ecosystem, not just some magic box you plug into the wall. Installation is the true make-or-break factor in this entire explainer. Even the absolute highest-tech combi boiler will underperform if the setup isn't tailored to your home. Let's walk through these essential design details. First is correct sizing. If the unit is too big, it's going to short cycle, meaning it rapidly turns on and off for a few minutes at a time, which completely destroys efficiency and wears out expensive parts. Next, you need proper vent and condensate management so the unit can safely expel acidic exhaust and actually operate in that money-saving condensing mode. Then there's heat emitter compatibility. This simply means your new boiler needs to speak the exact same language as your existing radiators or baseboards. If it sends water that's too cool to old-school radiators, you're going to freeze. We also can't ignore insulation and air sealing. If your house is incredibly drafty, any system has to work overtime, wasting energy. Finally, zoning and smart controls prevent heating empty rooms. Look, if your installer cuts corners on these specific design details, your high-tech system simply won't deliver.
Finally, Section 6, Calculating Your Potential Savings.
I really want you to vigorously step through this practical checklist before you hand over thousands of dollars to a contractor. Step 1. Collect at least one full heating season of your utility statements so you have real, hard data. Step 2. Estimate the split between your space heating and your water heating. Step 3. And please, whatever you do not skip this. Request a real installer load calculation. Do not settle for a guy just making a wild guess based on the square footage of your home. Make them do the math. Step 4. Insist on a proposal that explicitly includes the controls and venting details we just discussed. And finally, Step 5. Model your savings using your realistic operating conditions and your actual local utility rates.
And that brings us to the bottom line of our whole discussion. Focus less on the technology label and more on the full system package. This really truly summarizes the thesis of this explainer. Real efficiency doesn't come from just slapping a fancy combi boiler label onto your basement wall. True efficiency comes from a holistic approach to home heating, where the sizing, the controls, the distribution design, and your own daily routines are all working together in perfect harmony.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Is your home's ecosystem really ready for an upgrade? Before making a massive purchase, go down to your basement, evaluate your insulation, check out your piping layout, and think critically about your family's daily hot water habits. Understanding your home as an interconnected system is the absolute key to empowering yourself and cutting your utility bills this winter. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy learning.